Bun venit la o nouă ediție a emisiunii Ziua se apropie. Vă prezentăm astăzi un material special realizat de colegii noștri de la All Israel News. Ei au reușit să iau un interviu Sergentului K, un fost lunetist în cadrul IDF, care relatează despre lucrurile înfiorătoare, incredibile și greu de imaginat prin care trec lunetiștii israelieni și modul în care aceste experiențe teribile îi afectează pe cei implicați în războiul contra Hamas, atât pe plan fizic, social, cât și psihologic. Vizionare plăcută!
What comes to mind when you think of an IDF sniper? Depending on which side of the fence you're on, you will either envision the bravest of heroes, eradicating evil for the sake of a free Israel and a free world, or alternatively, a cold-blooded, genocidal soldier committing war crimes. But what are IDF snipers really like? Most of us will never meet a sniper, but what would you ask them if you did? Perhaps the most taboo question of all, how many people have you killed? Do you have any regrets? Or what do you truly think of the war between Israel and Hamas? As fate would have it, I met an IDF sniper, Staff Sergeant K, an American Jew who grew up in the States, making Aliyah to join the IDF. He had one particular role in mind, to become a sniper. Bump into him on the street and you would think he was just a regular guy. He possessed a cool calm, armed with a quick sense of humor and a somewhat stoic demeanor, a kind gentleman who held his cards close to his heart. To me, he seemed almost too normal. No external signs letting up the fact that just a few weeks ago, he was released from 10 months of fighting Hamas terrorists in Gaza. A rough estimate concludes there are about 650 snipers in Israel, making Staff Sergeant K and the likes of him a rarity. I sat down with him and we conversed at length about his lived combat experience, his kills and the effects of war, and how he deals with civilian life. Okay, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you sitting here with me and really sharing what's actually going on.
Thank you very much for having me.
How did you decide to make Aliyah and be drafted into the army?
Well, the first main part was me being Jewish. I wanted to come to the Jewish homeland and serve my country. And the second part is I was a little bit bored with the life I had.
So you were searching for meaning, purpose?
I was searching for a challenge.
Did you have anything particular in mind that you wanted to do when you got here?
I wanted to be a sniper.
A sniper. Why that? Why not something else?
I always wanted to join the military from when I was a little kid. I wanted to be a sniper because I thought their role was very important, very hard, and it took a dedicated type of person with a certain mental state. I felt like I had the mental fortitude and strength, and I was mentally sound enough in order to do it. I was able to make hard decisions when other people couldn't.
So you came here without knowing the language. What did your family or friends think about you going to a different country and drafting?
All of my family was proud of me, supported me, was excited.
So what's the process of being drafted once you get here?
Usually the first step is going into the Lishkat, the drafting center, draft office, and you have what's called a tzavlishon, or your first report, which is basically where they do all types of testing, ask you all types of questions, get all your information. Usually takes about a day, and then you wait for a draft date.
So during that time you learned Hebrew, right?
During that time I learned Hebrew thanks to the army.
So you were accepted to be a sniper. What does your training look like from there on?
Yeah, I was accepted to be a sniper out after my 8 months of basic and advanced training. From there you have to go through a shooting test, you have to go through a psychological evaluation, and you have to do a personal sit-down interview with your officer of the platoon and a couple of the other senior snipers in the platoon. After that, you go to a military base in the Melkaz, in the middle of Israel, which is called Mitkan Adam, and there you go under your sniper course.
What's in the sniper course? What does that entail?
From basic knowledge of how the weapon works, what parts of the weapon you have, to close range. When I say close range, I mean 100 meters. 100 meters to, depending on the rifle you get, up to 1,300 meters. Target detection, being able to read the wind. There's mathematics, there's physics involved in it. Learning how to camouflage yourself in any surroundings, whether it's in the woods or the mountains or in the plains and a field. Those are just some of the things off the top of the head.
And what about, mentally and emotionally?
That part, at least in my sniper course, I think that's something they more trust the soldier to build when he goes back into active duty. Because it's something, at the end of the day, you can take someone for a week to a range, a shooting range, and at the end of that week, they'll shoot amazingly, but you can't take someone for a week and get him to change the way he thinks. That's his decision. He was either born with it or he changes it, but you have to make that decision sometime along the line.
Do they try to, though, prepare you, to caution you of what might happen?
We get shown videos of, real-life sniper situations.
And what about the international laws of war? How do they explain, how to protect yourself in that situation?
Depends on the mission you get. Geneva is a very specific, but also a very broad standard. Every mission has a different requirement depending on where we are, what's the means of the mission. It just depends on the mission.
As the dust began to settle on the events of that horrible day, Israel geared up to engage in a full-blown war with 250 Israeli citizens, both Jewish, Muslim, and foreigners, taken hostage by Hamas. On October 27th, the IDF officially announced a ground maneuver, a historical moment as tanks lined up to cross the border. Commander of the Southern District, Major General Yoron Finkelman, sent the troops off to battle with these words.
אנחנו יוצאים למתקפה על החמאס וארגוני הטרור ברצועת עזה. מטרתנו היא אחת, ניצחון. לא משנה כמה תהיה ארוכה הלחימה, כמה קשה, אין תוצאה אחרת מלבד ניצחון.
So let's fast forward to the 7th of October. Where does that find you?
I was on base in the West Bank on guard duty. It was about 6:30 in the morning, and a friend came up to my guard post, said, "Look at this," and showed me videos of what was going on in Sderot and all the kibbutzim.
At that moment, did you know that something big was happening, that a war had broke out, and you would be part of it?
It was the first time that I had actually believed. People in Israel always say like, "Oh, a war is coming. There's about to be a war," and we, as Israelis say, like, we'll be good. Look, I thought to myself, I was like, "Oh, we're going to war. Like, this is real. There's going to be a lot of fighting."
So describe to me, before that you're in the West Bank, you already know a certain type of combat. How was it going into Gaza? Describe to me the feeling.
It felt good, as crazy as that sounds. I mean, look, you have to realize it from my standpoint. And my guys, we were waiting 3.5 weeks. We were amped up, and the longer you wait, the least amount of adrenaline and testosterone you have, which helps you a lot. When we got to the border, I didn't really think much of anything. I just thought I was going to war. A guy in front of me threw up from the nerves and from the anxiety. Guy to the right of me passed out a couple of times before we got there. And when I took a step over the border, that was it. I was in Gaza. There wasn't too much thought behind it. It was just like, all right, let's go fight.
So wait, break this down for me. You're telling me that you are literally crossing into an enemy zone where there are terrorists that are waiting to kill you. They're waiting to engage in combat with you, and you're not afraid at all?
I told you I moved here for a challenge.
So
sounds like a pretty good challenge.
Sounds like a good challenge, but was there was no nerves involved? No, I could die, my family won't, ever see me again. Did that cross your mind at all?
I could die thing, that's a good question. As long as I feel like I'm shooting the bad guys, I'm doing the right thing, God will have my back and protect me. That's how I felt.
So there was almost an element of faith behind it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you felt like you were on a mission to do God's work, or like how would you approach that?
There were two sides of it. There was a part of me that I was defending God's people, defending His kingdom, defending His country. The second part was I wanted some revenge of my own. I wanted to give them my own taste of the medicine.
So describe to me your role as a staff sergeant sniper and what that entails and what type of operations you were involved in.
Staff sergeant is just a rank. So I had the ability and was certified to lead a certain amount of people into battle, into war. And as far as operations go, there's so many different types of operations. You can go on Overwatch, you can go on Recon, you can go on the targeted kill, you can go on guard duty. There's endless amounts of operations you can go on. Overwatch is if your company or your battalion or your platoon is moving in a certain direction, you're basically their eyes and ears to where they can't see in the far distance. That's Overwatch. That was probably the main one that we did. I would say 75% of all of our missions were Overwatch.
Describe to me the difference between a sniper on duty and a soldier killing terrorists. What would be the difference for you?
Mission objective. We have different, what I mean by mission objective is what's the goal for the mission. We don't really go down breaking doors and clearing houses. We can, and we have, but it's not really our specialty. They get more hands-on than we do, but I would say our type of war is more intimate and patient.
What were the types of things that surprised you, being inside those civilian houses because you had to combat in them, both in Hamas leaders' houses and just normal day civilians?
Civilians who generally had nothing to do with October 7th don't support Hamas. They didn't have much of anything in their houses, everyday stuff that me and you have. In the leader houses, we would find expensive watches. But yeah, everything from expensive jewelry, watches, designer brands, money, drugs, the life, the good life, the high life.
So for people that don't know, describe Hamas and their tactics combating with you guys in an urban area.
At the beginning, the very few first days of the war, they were a lot of more face-to-face. When I say face-to-face, I'm not talking hand-to-hand, but shootouts. As we progressed, it more led to ambushes. One or two Hamas fighters would shoot off a couple rounds or shoot an RPG at a tank or at a platoon. And in turn, they would want us to chase them, basically following them into a trap. And then now, which I would call the third stage of the war, you hardly see, at least that was my experience in my last two deployments, is that you hardly saw them. They were all underground. They use IEDs a lot. For anybody who doesn't know what an IED is, improvised explosive device. It's basically homemade. And they're remote controlled and remote censored, and they have cameras set up with internet feeds. And there's always someone sitting at the camera to wait to see if soldiers do pass because they can remote activate it.
So what we saw on the 7th of October was that there were so many terrorists that came in through the border, but there were also
a lot of civilians.
Thousands of civilians. So I think people are expecting these Hamas terrorists to always be, recognizable in full uniform. But you're saying also that, they didn't always have uniforms. They could look like.
They don't have full uniforms. The ones that they don't dress up. That's just what they wear.
So they're not fighting though by anyone's rules, right?
No, Hamas does not fight by the Geneva Conventions. Not at all.
Okay, so from an outside perspective, I'm sure you've seen, the situation in the world. There's so much anti-Semitism. There's so many protests that are pro-Palestine, anti-Israel. And as a person who lived abroad for over a year, and I could see what they were showing on their news and what I could see on our news, it was completely biased. Like there was no question about it. And I'm wondering for you how you would describe those images as a person who has actually been on the inside, because what they see is that Gaza is in ruins. They think that there is a genocide happening. They think that the people are being starved.
Most of Gaza is in ruins. That is true. I mean, it's a war. It is what it is. I've had conversations with people who have made outlandish statements. They were I'll give you a specific example without too many details. They were talking about a specific operation that was very big in the news, and very big around the world. And anybody probably watching this video read about it, listened to it, something. And I was a part of that operation. Basically, the person that was talking with me accused and said that we had done unhuman things, that we were killing elderly and we were killing babies. And he said that he had heard it on the news, and he showed me the article. I was just shocked. As someone who was there, I was like, none of this happened. there was just no concrete evidence. There wasn't a shred of anything that backed up what they claimed. And I don't want to use the word I lost respect, but I just lost faith in anything news-based. And that goes for anything, whether you're conservative or liberal or everything. Lost faith in it.
Let's talk a bit about your snipers platoon and the relationships that you formed with them. How, you're going into war. Mm-hmm. You have these people that in the beginning they're complete strangers, and yet you are trained together to also have each other's back. It's literally the difference between life or death, your cooperation or the lack of cooperation. How close do you become in that situation?
Like brothers.
Like brothers.
Yeah, it's the old military stereotype. It's, brothers in arms, but it really is like that. Even people that you'd hate, you take a bullet for. No matter how much you don't like them or even hate them, you have a general respect for the man himself for still being there. And that alone is enough to take a bullet for him.
So for anyone listening to this, it might sound like, it's all just 100% completely intense, but you also have, quote unquote downtime or waiting time or the time that you're waiting. So how does that look like? What are the conversations like, or do you have any fond memories?
An unlimited amount of stories that I have in my head. But you talk about everything from when you're getting out of Gaza the next time, to what food you want to eat when you get out, to women, of course, to guns, and if you're in a sniper's platoon, you talk about kills every once in a while. Well, a lot.
So you were injured twice.
Yep.
From what you can share, how was that like, and why come back to fight after that?
I remember the first injury that I had got wasn't too serious, but in Hebrew you have this thing of the saying of is it chutzpan? Like who does he think he is? When I did get injured the first time, and the second time for that matter, that was my first thought. Who does this guy think he is shooting at me? I think it's kind of funny. When I sustained the injuries after that, until I got taken out of Gaza, escorted out, I didn't really feel any type of way about it. I just didn't want to go out of combat. The only thing I ever thought about was just maybe the possibility of how long is this going to take me out of the fight, which the first one wasn't that bad. I was maybe out for a couple of days and gave up on the rest of my time at home to go back and fight. The second one was a little bit longer than that. It was a more serious injury, but thank God everything's good now.
Talk to me about the physical challenges that you would experience there, because it's not like you have a specific base with comfortable circumstances. How does that time look like?
Physical challenges?
Where do you sleep? How do you shower? What do you eat?
You don't really shower for however long. You can maybe wash your body every once in a while if you get lucky. And when I mean wash your body, it's just with soap in a water bottle. That's how you do it. The way it works there's not many bases. In fact, pretty much 99% of the bases that are in Gaza, if you want to call them bases, or let's just say permanent areas that there are always people stationed there, 99% of them are makeshift. They're just made out of the surroundings, the buildings that are surrounding it, and they use that as a natural fortification. You do kind of the same on a smaller scale with your platoon, with your company, with your battalion. You take a house, you clear a house, you get word from the chain of command, this is the house you guys will be staying in tonight. You make guard posts. You kind of build up your defenses a little bit, whether that's making a makeshift wall or what we call a pakala rasha, which is basically a booby trap. It's a noise booby trap. It's the best way to explain it, where we'll tell everybody in the platoon or whoever's in the building with us, hey, past floor 2, we don't go down. Right, and so what we'll do is we'll take cups or plates, anything that's made of porcelain or glass, and we'll throw it down the stairs. So that way we know if we hear any type of crunching or any type of cracking, somebody's coming up. As far as sleeping goes, you sleep on whatever you can. Every once in a while you get lucky and there's a mattress. Most of the time they usually have those very thin sleeping pads, I call them. They're kind of like yoga mats. Most of the time you sleep on that, but I would say 9 out of 10 times you got at least 6 dudes in the room you're sleeping in. The most we ever had was I think 11 in one room.
Can you sleep?
Yeah, you can. In the winter, it's definitely easier. In the summer, there's maybe 2 hours of the day you can sleep, really. Like, actually sleep. And you're still drenched in sweat when you wake up.
Talk to me about the loss of friends and fallen soldiers.
It sucks. It's horrible. The feelings that I have experienced haven't been overwhelming. I think that's just still a side effect of being in war for almost a year. You have that initial thing of, I can't believe they're gone. But you don't really get a chance to think about it. And you can't either. You can't really let it affect you, because then it affects your job and it affects your performance. I have an example of a friend died from an IED, and I saw the explosion in my scope. He wasn't my best friend ever, but he was a guy that I would sit, have a cigarette with, talk. We would shoot. We would, chop it up. And I just remember thinking, he used to say, "Basta," like, wow, that sucks. And then went to looking to see if I could find the terrorist who had remotely detonated it, or if I could find a camera that was looking to take the camera out. That was my response to it. There wasn't much of a reaction. It was just like he didn't deserve to die. He deserved better. He deserved, or they deserved, to build families, businesses, relationships, whatever it may be. And they were cut short. It doesn't seem fair to me.
So he wasn't able to return to civilian life, but you have, after 10 months. It's now about over 2 months that you've been out of Gaza, correct? How is civilian life for you now?
Weird. I'm gonna speak from a sniper's perspective, but you're a trained killer. That's what you are. Like I said, there's a bunch of different operations, but at the end of the day, you're an assassin. And let's not sugarcoat it. After doing that for 10 months, basically just, killing people was your job. That was your profession. And you were the best at it. The snipers are the best at it, obviously. They have the best training. And then when I got to the end of my service, it kind of just felt like, they're a civilian, now go enjoy. In my head, wait a second. I've seen friends die, I got injured. I just spent the last 10 months killing people, and it was intimate. It was like, sniping is intimate. It was an intimate type of killing. I know it sounds weird to say, but it is. And then just to, you're out, go enjoy your life, was just something that was very hard to understand and deal with. There was a time period, I would say, for about 2 weeks to 3 weeks where I was still in war. I think part of me still is, partially. Not as big part as it was before, but I think part of me, a small part, is still there. Gets better every day. But yeah, you can definitely be a little bit more intense than other people. Things can look black and white to you. It's like going to a new universe. Because for 10 months, when I say traumatic, I'm not saying necessarily in a bad way, but it's traumatic in the sense of it's life-changing war. It changes the way you view things. It changes the way you live, the way you eat, the way you clean yourself, your thought process. Coming back to civilian life after almost a year of that was like going to a new world. It was like going to a new universe. It wasn't the same. There were different rules of talking, rules of engaging with people, what I could and couldn't say, or how I was supposed to act. So it was definitely difficult at the beginning, for sure.
How does that disconnect express itself, or what are the symptoms of that within your relationships?
Sometimes it might be very short and to the point, or get a little too mad too easily, which I've realized, and when that does happen, I just tend to remove myself from the situation, and I try to catch it while it's happening. Nothing ever physical, just more of like being pissed off. just more of like, I don't want to talk to anybody right now. I want to be alone. I want to be with my thoughts. I don't want anybody near me. Yeah.
Do you suffer from any symptoms that you would define as PTSD?
I think everybody that goes to war has PTSD in some way or another. I don't have PTSD in the sense of, like you see on movies, like you see people who can't sleep, or nightmares, or wake up in cold sweats, or flashbacks. I haven't had any of that. And I think once again, I'm going to bring it back to the fact that I'm secure with everything I did. I know everything I did was justified in my head and in my belief. And so when you're secure with what you did, it helps. It helps a lot. Especially being a sniper. I mentioned this earlier, you see a lot of snipers that have these flashbacks or have these dreams or nightmares or visions or whatever you want to call it, these side effects of the war that hinder them in such a meaningful and impactful way. And I believe that it's because they're not, and I can't speak to everybody, but I believe it's because they're not 100% secure with what they did.
Were there some snipers that couldn't handle it?
Yeah, they got dropped from combat. Every sniper has a limit. Everybody has a different time. Thank God I was able to, finish out my service. But I knew many snipers after 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, just said I can't do it anymore. They were fried, and I understand them.
Did they get help from the army after that with psychological help or therapy?
Yeah.
Did you take that option?
No, I did not.
Why not?
That's stuff I gotta deal with, and I think when I'm ready, I'll make that decision to go see someone, because it will happen. I'm pretty stubborn. I want to see if I can hammer out a couple of things by myself first, but it will happen. I made that decision with myself, because at the end of the day, it's not, I can get fine by myself, but the people that are going to be affected by it in the long run are my family, my future wife, my future kids. It's not fair to them. So that's why I'll do it.
Is there any last comments or anything that you would like to share?
Yeah, if you do happen to see a sniper, meet a sniper, depends on the relationship you have with them, but don't glorify what they did. When I mean the word glorify, don't praise it. In my opinion, it's not something to be praised, it's something to be proud of, not praised. Be very mindful of how you interact with snipers specifically, but any member of any armed force. But yeah, no, the glorification of killing, I think, that's my biggest thing. I wish people would have more of a respect for it. Yeah, that's it.
That's really important. I for one, will try and keep that in mind. Thank you so much, Kay.
No problem, thank you.
As young men go off to war, willing to lay down their lives, it is soldiers such as Staff Sergeant K that will tell you that they only did what any other Israeli soldier would have done. His story is one of many, but more accurately, the story of all. It begins and ends with the love of country and love for its people. His closing comments summarize the true intention and humanity of the man behind the rifle. It's something to be proud of, but not praise, proving that the end game for any sniper is not the number of terrorists he kills, but the number of lives he saves by pulling the trigger.
Emisiunea Ziua se apropie, se încheie aici. Vă mulțumim pentru atenție și vă dăm o nouă întâlnire săptămâna viitoare la aceeași oră. Sunt Codruța Burchelea. Dumnezeu să vă binecuvânteze!